Hello, South Mountain. My name is Holly Snyder, and I am coming to you from the South Mountain Bible Church Youth Group. Pastor Colin and I will be presenting to you for the next 12 weeks a study on the kings of Judah. Each week we will have many lessons pertaining to the kings per the order in the Bible that will come in the form of videos, with the main lesson to be presented every Wednesday night at South Mountain Bible Church at 6:30 to 8 p.m. If you miss any videos, that's okay. They will be uploaded to the church website at smbiblechurch.org. With that, let's get started with our first lesson. Why did Israel get a king? The history of Israel beginning starts with a man by the name of Jacob, who was all the way back in the first book of the Bible, Genesis. Israel was divided into 12 tribes. The formation of the 12 tribes were the names of each of Jacob's sons, and they included Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulon, Joseph, and of course the youngest of all of them, little Benjamin. As these tribes grew, they did not have a king, but God appointed judges. Appointed judges in Israel's time of need to lead the Israelites back to him. In the book of Judges in the Bible, there are 12 judges named that aided in the cycle of Israel's rebellion. And this cycle is pretty common. Israel would do something stupid. They would worship other gods. They wouldn't follow God's laws. They would really just not be what they should be. And then God would discipline them, usually by making them attacked by other countries or maybe captured by other countries. And Israel would be really, really upset, and they would repent. Please, God, help me. I'm sorry for what we've done. We've been really, really bad. And then God would send a judge to deliver them, help them out, and they would follow under the judge. But of course, over time, Israel would then get kind of comfortable with what they did, and they would go back into their old ways as they would rebel again. And the cycle would continue. And this continued for 12 times throughout the book of Judges. Then we get to the first Samuel. And when we get to the into the book of 1 Samuel, we are introduced to a judge that hasn't even been born yet, and his name is Samuel. We start off meeting his mom, Hannah, who prays to God for a son because she was unable to have kids herself. Hannah promised to God that if he gave her a son, that she would give him to the Lord all the days of his life. God did bless her with a son, Samuel, which we already know. When the child was weaned from his mother, Hannah gave Samuel to the Lord under the care of Eli, the priest. Samuel was the first judge to be taught from God's law at a very young age. Before this, all the other times, all the judges were basically called upon in time of need. Like God would just say, okay, I need you, go do the work that I need you to do. And that's how it was fulfilled. However, Samuel, being that he became a judge and he was grown up from a very young age, he was promised to God even before he was born. He became a major player in God's plan for the kings of Israel, and soon to include the kings of Judah. Samuel loved the Lord and fully trusted him, but the same could not be said about all the people of Israel. So when Samuel became older, his sons, Joel and Abijah, became the next judges of Israel in Beersheba. And here's the problem with that. Whenever they became the judges, they weren't assigned by God. They ended up being chosen by Samuel. And Samuel said, okay, I would let you guys be the next two judges. This was kind of a bad no-no because his sons did not follow God's law. And they were really corrupt. And they would make a lot of shady deals. And it became really, really bad to the point that the Israelites' elders noticed this. So what happened next was that they came to Samuel. And they said, you know what, Samuel, we don't want a judge anymore. We want a king. All the other nations were doing it, so why can't we do it? Everybody else has a king, and it seems to be working for them. So we want a king. And this request just infuriated Samuel. He just couldn't understand why they wouldn't trust God. So instead of being angry and frustrated or doing what he needed to do, he took his concerns to the Lord. And he said, God, these people don't want a judge anymore. They want a king. What do we do? And the Lord said to Samuel, saying, obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them, according to all the deeds that they have done, from the day I brought them out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods. So they are also doing to you. Now then, obey their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them. Okay, breaking it down, once again, Israel has refused to trust God. They keep turning to their own ideas, their rules, and fears instead of coming to God and seeing what He wants for Israel. Every time God had to step in and fix a problem, that was because Israel went and mucked it up. They just screwed up and did something, and God had to go and help fix it. God should be the only rulers in their lives and our lives as well. And up until this request, God was going to show them just how wrong their request was and how wrong their idea was. And it wasn't going to be a quick lesson. We're going to learn that over the span of about 100 or 520 years, why they should have just listened to God and paid attention to God. All right, so here's what God said. He said, Samuel, go back to the people and tell them what's going to happen if they have a king. So, you know how like whenever you get a pill and there's a whole bunch of side effects to the pill, you listen to the videos or the commercials and they're like, side effects could be headaches, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, all these terrible things. Well, this is what he was pretty much doing to Israel. And to the tribe of Israel, they're about to get the whole side effects. And here they are. There would be that their sons would be drafted to the front line, soldiers, no choice. He's going to tell you what jobs you're going to do. He will tell you how to use your land, what you're going to make, what you're going to do. Your daughters will be taken to do servants' jobs from their parents. Your best land is no longer yours. He can take whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And whatever you have left that is best for food and drink, he will take to feed his own servants, no charge. Your best people in your family or farm, he will take and make work in his own land. So they're not going to work on your land anymore. They're going to be working on his. And the big one, the biggest side effect of all, which, usually on a pill is death. You will become his slave. You will no longer have free will. Whatever the king says is what's going to happen. So after all that, wouldn't you think the people would just stop and say, man, maybe I should think about this. I mean, these are some pretty serious side effects. But mostly like today as well, once we have something in our mind, our mind's made up. And they even said afterwards, they went back and said, we want a king. Give us a king. So instead of just doing what he wants or doing what the people of Israel wants, Samuel went back to the Lord. And he said, this is what the people of Israel wanted. This is how they want things to happen. And he said, okay. And the Lord said, make them a king. That's it. Make them a king. So you see, the road to the kings of Israel and Judah was not fully a blessed one. Over the course of the next 12 weeks, we're going to divide into the first kings of Israel, understand why Israel split, and follow Israel and Judah, they're kings of Judah, and how they go from good, evil, revival. There's a lot of information that's going to be coming at us for the next 12 weeks. So with that, folks, I hope everyone has a really good time. I'm going to turn you around so you can all see me. Hello. So I hope everyone had a good time with this lesson today. We're going to be coming at you with more lessons each week, especially with our first three kings. We have Saul, we have David, and Solomon. There's so much information there that we cannot get it all done in one lesson. So we're going to have a whole bunch more lessons with that. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's lesson, and stay tuned for the next week's coming up. I hope you guys had a good time. Talk to you guys later. Bye.